It's a very politically charged town, and it's a politically charged piece. What are you trying to say personally through this piece?
I'm not trying to say anything political through the piece. I'm trying to tell the stories of the soldiers that have been out there fighting and dying on our behalf, because it's often a story that isn't told or isn't fully told within the big macro political kind of conversation. What we did was interview 6 soldiers that had just come back from Iraq, and then we put both the telling of those stories as they told them to us and the dramatisation of the stories that they told us at their time in Iraq, so that they could tell their stories in their own words. Every year at the Edinburgh Festival they have this thing called the military tattoo, the Edinburgh tattoo, and it's at the Edinburgh Castle, and it was just at the kind of height of the Iraq War that I started thinking about that again, and basically they invite regiments from all over the world to come and parade, and it felt very divorced from actually the fact that, you know, the other members of those regiments were dying out in Iraq, yet there was this great celebration of the military, which I kind of subsequently came to understand as a very important point of pride. Before you kind of get involved in that detail, it feels very divorced and almost narcissistic, really, in terms of the I suppose commanders of those regiments, and that we sit there clapping people marching up and down when actually they're out there dying in our name. So I wanted to make that point, really. So Black Watch, the show, finishes with a big parade, which is based on an Edinburgh tattoo, a parade that might happen there. Apart from ours is, we aspire to be slightly more truthful in terms of what really those soldiers are going through.
But you do celebrate the history of the military in the fashion piece that we saw earlier. So how many times does he change? And how hard was it to...
There's 1, 2, 3, 4 different uniforms. It was very difficult to create that piece. We do tell the history, but we tell it from the soldier's point of view as opposed to from the victor's point of view. So what you wouldn't get in a kind of military tattoo version of that history is the fact that the mud on the bottom of their greatcoats used to cut their legs. So they cut them off above the kilts. You know, you don't get the detail that it's trench foot and mustard gas and rats and lice. You know, so I think what Greg was aspiring to do with that is tell more of a kind of warts and all version, rather than the great battles that you might get in a kind of a war film or a military tattoo.
Americans are very closely we relate closely to the war in Iraq here, and this kind of takes us to someone else's perspective. But why do you think that an American audience responds so well to Black Watch?
They respond to the fact that we know that the real people experience this, but also from what some of the American audiences here in LA and New York have said to me, is they find it almost easier to go in through these Scottish soldiers, because often they forget that anybody else is involved in these invasions.